Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will get started shortly. We're just going to give a minute or so to allow more people to come in. But thanks again for coming, and we'll get started shortly. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Today, we have a really cool tour prepared for you. We're going to talk about where does your sewage go? Specifically, we're going to highlight the Valencia water reclamation plant. You've probably seen this plant when you're screaming your head off at the Goliath ride in Six Flags, and you can probably see something, a little treatment plant down there. So today we're going to give you a tour on what exactly you'll find there and how it works and how we treat your wastewater. So before we get into that, um, just a few things. If you have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A feature that's located at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on a tablet or mobile phone, you can use it'll be if you have a tablet or mobile phone, it'll be on your top right-hand corner. Or you can also just ask your question live. So use the raise hand feature and we'll unmute you. And so to get started, I'm going to introduce Basil Hewitt, our supervisor in the Public Information Office. And then we have our, our expert. We have our subject matter expert, Matt Lynn, the Assistant Superintendent of Treatment Plant Operations, who will also be answering questions at the end. So with that, I leave it off to you, Basil.
Thank you, Genesis. And Matt, don't be shy. You can jump in because he's always the expert. So good morning. Thank you, Genesis, and thank you all for joining us on a virtual tour in Valencia. Usually we do these tours at the treatment plant, but and we hope to get back there soon. All right, so let's start. The sanitation districts. We were formed in 1923, and this is an actual photo back in the early 1920s of raw sewage going into Santa Monica Bay. And this raw sewage had health consequences. Back in the 1920s, the average person in LA County only lived to about 55 years of age, and the major reason was poor sanitation in the rivers and the ocean. So folks got together, passed a law called the Sanitation Districts Act, and we were tasked to collect and treat wastewater. From these humble big beginnings down in the South Bay, we've now grown to be 24 sanitation districts that you see highlighted here. And today we're going to focus in on the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District that you see in the circle. That's one of 24 sanitation districts. What's neat about the structured sanitation district is that we serve 5.6 million people. So you have the buying power of a large agency, but yet you have local control because each sanitation districts decides what projects, what issues are most important to them. So for the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation Districts, their board of directors comprised of 2 members from City of Santa Clarita City Council and the chairperson of LA County Board of Supervisors, because that sanitation district has mainly the city of Santa Clarita as well as a small an unincorporated area of LA County. So each of our sanitation districts are based not on political boundaries, but drainage area. We want to gravity flow the wastewater to our treatment plant, because when you gravity flow, you don't need energy, and energy is money, and we want to make sure we treat this wastewater, clean up this wastewater as cost effectively as possible. From those humble beginnings down to South Bay, we now treat about 400 million gallons of sewage throughout LA County with our 11 wastewater treatment plants. 400 million gallons of sewage is enough to fill the Rose Bowl 4 or 5 times a day. And we have two of our 11 wastewater treatment plants are in the Santa Clarita Valley. There's one in Saugus and there's one in Valencia. Here's a close-up look of the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District. You can see the Saugus map right here. The Saugus plant was the first plant in the Santa Clarita Valley. It was built in 1962. It can treat up to 6.5 MGD. And the second treatment plant is the Valencia plant, and that was built in 1967, and it can treat up to 21.5 million MGD. And these two plants are interlinked. So all the solids treatment, the stuff pulled out of the wastewater, all of it is processed at the Valencia plant. And today we're going to take a closer look at the Valencia plant that you see highlighted with the black pin. So before we get to the plant, let's talk about what is wastewater. Wastewater is just simply the water that comes from your home. It's the water from the toilet, it's water from the shower, water from the sinks in your bathroom, your kitchen, and so on. And when that water leaves your home, it goes through a lateral from your home, your business or school, and then it goes into a larger line called a local sewer. And in the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District, the local sewers are either owned by the city of Santa Clarita or Los Angeles County unincorporated area. Those local sewer lines, there's a network of them, feed into larger sewers called trunk sewers, and those are owned and operated and maintained by the sanitation district, Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District. And these are large diameter trunk sewers. We have over 40 miles of trunk sewers in Santa Clarita, and these trunk sewers feed into either Saugus or Valencia. So let's look at the larger of our two Santa Clarita Valley treatment plant. Here's an aerial shot of the Valencia water reclamation plant. It's right next to Magic Mountain, as Genesis referred to. Here's a cool drone shot showing the treatment plant right here. When we do the tour in person, we typically meet in the administration building. We have coffee and Vine's Donuts from local bakery nearby. You also can see Magic Mountain there to the left in this photo. And from there, we would walk over to the control room. So here's the control room for the Valencia water reclamation plant. Here are the operators, the men and women that basically pilot this treatment plant. They can see all the pumps, they can see water levels in the tanks, and basically they can control the whole plant from here, and alarms will sound there. And if there's something that's unusual or excuse me, is something that is out of the ordinary, they'll walk out, inspect it further, and do any necessary repair or adjustment. Matt, is there anything you want to say about the control room? Anything as one of the superintendents of this treatment plant you'd want to add?
As far as the control room goes, there's about 20 operators staffed at the Valencia water reclamation plant, with support crews of mechanical and electrical support, along with engineer support. We're able to monitor every piece of equipment in the plant via trends. We're alarmed for callback response. We go in 24/7, 365 days a year if we need to make sure that the wastewater treatment plant's operating effectively in the proper way. We're all certified through the state California Water Resources Control Board. It takes about 12 months to become an operator grade 1, and then the highest level being the grade 5, which the supervisor of the plant is the CPO for the state of California. We were able to monitor every piece of equipment in the plant, make sure that the wastewater is going through all the channels and everything's getting properly treated. I spend a large portion of my time at this plant, particularly. It's a terminal in facility. Between Saugus and Valencia, we treat about 20 million gallons a day, and we're able to do that successfully. And we've been doing it. We got some of the best operators in the nation, and a great support crew system, and we're able to keep the public and community protected.
Very good, very cool. All right, Matt. So Matt's the expert. So let's go on to, so keep your camera on because I'm gonna keep throwing the hard balls at you, the fastball question. All right, so the Valencia plant, as Matt, they have a great crew. It's a tertiary level treatment plant, and we'll step through what primary is. Primary is just basic gravity or physical processes. Secondary is where biological processes or biology does its thing, and tertiary is where we use chemicals and some filtration to go from sewage to clean water in about 12 hours. So we're going to first step through what occurs at the primary step at the Valencia plant. So first thing, people put all kinds of stuff down the sewers that shouldn't go in the sewer, and Matt could probably tell you horror stories of it. So the first thing is you remove the large objects from the wastewater, and what you're looking at is a flex rate, and what it does, it goes into that water coming in through the sewer. So it's gravity flow to the treatment plant, and now the sewage is below the Valencia plant. And now this flex rate goes into that water and starts fishing out large objects, rags that will just create havoc on the system. So here's how a flex rate works. It goes down into the wastewater and then comes up vertically, pulling out large objects. And Matt probably has seen some crazy things pulled out, I would imagine, right, Matt?
Yeah, stuff that shouldn't be in there, but basically it screens the water coming in. Anything that's larger than the screen pores, that rake will go in between those bar rakes and remove the bigger debris and then put it through a compactor.
And then you got a compactor right here, and then the compactor grinds this stuff up, and this is what it looks like. And this is part of the reason we do these tours. A big headache for Matt and the folks are these flushable wipes. They don't belong down the toilet. They will clog the pipes at your home. That will cost, thousands of dollars to get it unclogged. And it also creates havoc at the treatment plant at the pumps. And so I think last October, the state passed a law that next year you will see in the grocery store these flushable wipes that shouldn't be flushed. There'll be a label on it reminding consumers like, hey, this is going to create havoc on the sewer at home or the Valencia plant, for example. So flushable wipes should be thrown in the trash, not in the toilet. So now the waters come into the treatment plant. It's about 30, because it's gravity flowed, right? So the sewers are at an angle. By the time the wastewater gets to the treatment plant, it's about 30 feet below the ground. So we have about 6 influent pumps that pump this water 30 from below ground up to the ground level of the treatment plant. And this is a cool shot. You typically wouldn't get to see this on an actual tour, but because it's virtual, we can take pictures and show you the influent pumps. Here's an aerial shot of the Valencia plant. So right here is that influent pump building where these 6 influent pumps are at. Once it's pumped it up to the wastewater to the ground level, then the water goes into these grit chambers. What happens here, we have about 4 grit chambers. I think they're about 6 feet deep. Then correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. And what they're doing is they're removing abrasive stuff like eggshells, sand that would create havoc to the pumps and the equipment in the treatment plant. Anything you'd want to add about the grit chamber here, Matt?
No, the purpose is just to protect downstream equipment and get rid of nuisance material. I mean, you covered it with sand. Sand is a big one. It's really abrasive. And then all the coffee grounds, eggshells, inorganic material that's going to affect the biological process downstream. The grit chambers do a good job.
So coffee grounds create a problem as well, huh?
Yeah. They're abrasive and they go with the sand and grit.
Okay. All right. So once the grit chamber is removed, all the stuff that creates havoc in the treatment plant, then we go to the primary treatment. This is the large objects. The grits have been removed. These covered tanks is where the primary treatment occurs, and they're covered because you can imagine how bad this stuff smells. Bathrooms for 100,000 of people. Let's look under the lid of these tanks. Are covered to keep the odors in. We just want to give you that visceral look that you would get on a tour. You see all the stuff that's floating on top? And here's one of our primary settling tanks. Usually the water sits in there about 2 hours and just let gravity do its thing. Heavy stuff settles to the bottom, and then the stuff that's on top gets skimmed off. And show you a little schematic of how it works. You see this flight and chain. The stuff that's being settled out is being pushed out by those boards. That's called sludge. The stuff that's on top is also being skimmed off. All that's called primary sludge. People don't realize just taking this 2 hours to let the water sit and settle down, you remove about 60% of this impurity or pollution in this water. And then this stuff gets put into anaerobic digesters, and we'll talk more about that. And the stuff that's settled out gets, just like having a sewer system in the community, there are a bunch of galleries and pipes under the treatment plant that pump water and sludge around. So this is the gallery that's pumping the primary sludge towards the digesters. So we finished primary, which is just a physical process, about 2 hours. Now we're going to be in secondary, which is mainly a biological process where we let microorganisms do the work. So in secondary treatment, and you're looking at some video here, the water that came out of primary, which has dissolved organic material, we feed it into tanks that have microorganisms in there. And these microorganisms consume this organic material, they multiply, they settle out, and the water becomes cleaner. And one of the things, so there's 2 phases in this treatment plant. One area that's aerated, and then there's an area that's not aerated. It's an anoxic zone. And though we get a different spectrum of microorganisms, and those organisms, as you see over in here, are able to convert nitrogen compounds into nitrogen gas to do additional cleaning. Just a schematic of how it works. So the key here is aeration. So this could occur, these same microorganisms occur in nature, but by aerating them, we can support a lot more microorganisms in a small space, and then we feed them their organic material. So I always tell people it's like having your own fish tank. If you had a 10-gallon tank and you didn't aerate it, maybe you could have 10 goldfish in it, but you aerate it, and all of a sudden you could have maybe 100 goldfish in it, and you have to feed them more food. Same concept. I want to show it again. So by aerating it, we have a lot more microorganisms. We speed up what nature would do in these concrete tanks, and we're able to clean this water. And there's a nematode. We have all kinds of bacteria, protozoa in there. There's a nematode that's in the wastewater. And then we have a lab that analyzes what's in those tanks to make sure we have the right spectrum of microorganisms, they're the right age, and they're healthy, because they're the ones doing the heavy lifting in the treatment plant. So after we part of secondary treatment, we fed these microorganisms, we've given them enough oxygen, enough food, then we settle out the water. These are called secondary clarifier. They look very similar to the primary tanks, the primary settling tank, same flight and chain system, but here we're the blankets of microorganisms that have flocked together, they've settled out, and then we've pushed those out, much like the primary sludge, we have secondary sludge. And then we skim off the clean water. So look how clean this water is. And I guess the one thing I want to point out, as we settle out the microorganisms, we recycle most of the microorganisms back to the front end of secondary treatment. And if we grow more than we need, we will waste it. We'll call it secondary sludge. And that again goes to our digester. And this is about 10 hours into the wastewater treatment process. So what happens to the stuff that's been settled out of primary? What happens to stuff that's been wasted from secondary? It's going to go to the anaerobic digester, but it has so much water in it. So the first thing we do before it goes to the digester, we go to what we call a dissolved air flotation system, where all that stuff goes in there, and we use fine bubbles to bubble the solids to the top. We skim the solids off and leaving most of the water. So we want to reduce the excess water We don't put all that water into our digester. And here's one of our anaerobic digesters. The stuff this material, solids material goes into the digester. These are oxygen free, so microorganisms that can live in an anaerobic or an oxygen free environment take over. They eat that material, they kill pathogens, they reduce volume, reduce odors, and they generate biogas. This is set up just like our stomach. And I think the period of time and average, I think, is about 30 days in the digester, and they generate this biogas, which is mainly methane. And we use that methane to heat these digesters so they stay at about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, just like our body temperature. So they're set up just like the microorganisms that, set up just like our gut. Anything you'd want to say about these digesters, Matt?
Yeah, they're heated up through the methane's firing the boiler, which is what heats it up. The methane gas is used to fire the pilot on the boilers, and then that steam is generated, so a closed loop, so we can at least recover some of the energy.
Yeah. So, and then if we have excess methane, we flare it. There are a number of flares at that plant that destroy the methane. So after being in the digester for about 30 days, the stuff that gets pulled out we call cake, and surprisingly it's pretty dark. But it's only 3% solids, about 97% water, and we don't want to truck all that water off site, so we de-water or reduce the water concentration using these things called filter presses. Here's one of the operators here. Basically, what happens is the stuff that gets pulled out of digester gets put on these press, and it squeezes them, and it squeezes all the water out. And then it goes from 3% solid to about 20% solid, which reduces the amount that we have to truck off site by a great deal. This is getting lowered into the building, into a silo that will be fed into a truck. So here's our biosolids loading facility. And we're going to give you a neat shot of showing what a truck being loaded with biosolid. These trucks, each truck can be loaded to about 25 tons, and we have about 4 trucks a day. And then this is trucked off site from most of our facility, a lot of our facility, we compost it. Right now we're landfilling it. It's going to a landfill, the biosolid. Then the last step is tertiary treatment. This is just chemical process, adding some chemical to disinfect, as well as filtration, and it's called tertiary. So the water that left secondary treatment that you saw skim, it goes through what we call pressure filters. We have about 14 pressure filters that you see here. They're just like maybe the Brita filter you might have at home. Each of these chambers have coal, sand, and gravel, and the water is pumped through there. There's an aerial shot of the pressure filters. What's neat about these is that they take up less space, but they require more cleaning, more backwashing, but they get the job done in terms of making sure the water goes through a filter. And then the next step, the last tertiary, is we disinfect. We disinfect with sodium hypochlorite. The water from that went through the filter goes into these tanks. It's mixed with sodium hypochlorite, and it sits there for about 2 hours, and it disinfects. And since most of the water goes to the Santa Clara River, we have to dechlorinate, take out the chlorine before going to the river. And sticking to the fish tank analogy, if you were changing the water in your fish tank and you use tap water, you would add some chemical to get the chlorine out of tap water before you put your goldfish in. We do the same thing here. What chemicals do you add to dechlorinate here, Matt?
We use sodium bisulfite.
Yeah, and so we add sodium, but to dechlorinate, yeah. And I think these tanks right here are the sodium bisulfite tank, I would imagine.
Correct.
Yeah. And so after 12 hours, we produce recycled water. We went from raw sewage to what you see here. We produce between what 13, 15 million gallons of recycled water a day at the Valencia plant right now. And go ahead, Matt.
No, that's what we produce, total flow, and then the city of Santa Clarita takes a portion of that and for reuse.
Yeah, so we take out of the 13 million gallons or so, less than 1 million gallon is reused at a local golf course and at green belts to going in the direction of the golf course. Most of the recycled water is discharged to the Santa Clara River. Here's an actual shot, this going down to the outfall that discharges into Santa Clara River from the Valencia plant. Pretty amazing, go from raw sewage to this in 12 hours. But, you know, part of the history of all our treatment plants is that as we learn more, regulations get, there are more regulations. So one of the things that in the two Santa Clarita Valley treatment plant is that we've been mandated to remove the amount of chloride in our discharges to the river, because one of the uses of the river is agriculture, in particular avocado and strawberry. And this chloride, the chloride concentration in our effluent is not ideal or optimal for farming those crops. Right now, our chloride concentration is about 120 milligrams per liter coming into or leaving the plant. And we've been mandated to get it down to about 100 milligrams per liter or less. So we've constructed UV disinfection facilities. So we disinfect using bleach or sodium hypochlorite, but that contributes chloride or salts to the water. So what we're doing is we built these UV disinfection facility that will deactivate the viruses and so on, and it reduces the amount of chlorides, bleach that we need. So it reduces the amount of salt or chloride in the effluent that we produce. These facilities, we've constructed them. We're now in a testing phase, and so beginning of next year, they should be online and reducing the amount of bleach we're using to disinfect. This is an aerial shot. Before we go, let me pause it. Right here are the pressure filters. And this is what the site looked like last year, where we're building the UV facilities as well as advanced water treatment facilities. So let me go back. And building, so this is a year ago when we did this virtual tour. And now I want to show you how far we have come. And you can see, so now this is recent shot. The UV facilities are over here, that they're being tested, and we're building advanced water treatment facility here. This is a membrane building where we're going to use microfiltration, nanofiltration, and then reverse osmosis to take the salt out of the water. And then that ultra pure water will be blended with the tertiary water produced at the Valencia plant. and discharge the river to get to that 100 milligram per liter mandated level or lower, and then the brine produced will be trucked off site. These advanced water treatment facilities should be up and running in 2023. And that's the story of the plant, how it takes raw sewage in about 12 hours. It produces ultra clean recycled water. And then our next phase, our next upgrade is moving more to UV disinfection and this advanced purification of about 6.5 million gallons per day of the water will be purified and blended with the tertiary water to get the right or the low enough concentration of salt. So that's it. We have a tour, and here's Matt's info if you want to know more about the Valencia plant or to be an operator, and then info line if you want to reach us about tours or any general questions about the districts. With that, Genesis, are there any questions?
Yeah, actually, there are
Okay.
quite a few. Hold on one second.
And give them all to Matt.
I'm going to give them all to Matt. Okay. All right. So actually, there was one that came in right before you started talking about UV disinfection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So there are a few questions that was it first, are you considering UV for disinfection?
Yes.
You answered that part. And then have you looked at cogen for digester gas?
I'm not sure. I mean, we at our plant in Carson, we take the digester gas and we generate power from it, and it makes the plant energy self-sufficient. And I think as Matt described, the digester gas here is used to fire up the boilers. And we're always, I mean, if it's cost effective, we'll add, other ways of harvesting that digester gas. I'm not sure if I'm answering that question. I don't know if Matt, you could add anything to it.
We've been looking into alternate energy recovery resources. We're always looking into it, just if it's cost effective or not. That's the big thing.
Okay, great. So the next part of the question, and ML, if you want any clarification, you can ask in the chat. So, all right, the next part of ML's question is, where is the landfill, and does LA Sand reuse any biosolids from any facilities?
So the biosolids that come from Valencia plant is, I think it's Holloway is the company, and I'm not sure where the landfill is at, but at our other facilities, I mean, we used to compost this stuff here. Just right now, I don't think we're doing that, but most of our biosolids, we're composting it with agricultural waste and creating soil amendment, and we've been doing that for a long time. Just right now, I think we're in a transition phase with the Valencia plant in terms of how the biosolids is handled. And I think I mentioned there was like 4 trucks a day, 5 days a week. But down at the joint plant, Carson, we have about 50 trucks a day, and all that is most of that's being composted and creating a soil amendment.
Okay, and the last and final part was, are you looking at digesting restaurant or other industry wasting your digesters?
Yes, that's a great question. There's a law called SB 1383 that goes into effect January 1. And it's a state law, and it's requiring that organics be diverted from landfill. And so the way the law is set up is either and a big part of organics is food waste. If that food waste is still edible, it should be donated to like food bank. And what's not edible should either be composted or go into anaerobic digester. So we've set up, I think 6 years ago, we have the infrastructure in our not in the Valencia plant, but down in the southern part of LA County, we have the infrastructure in place where we can take food waste, create a slurry with it, and then it gets put into the digesters at our plant in Carson with the solids removed from wastewater. And we've been doing that, and it's increased our biogas production, and we're using that to power the Carson plant. and taking some of that biogas and putting it into CNG fueling station. So yeah, so we do have a pretty mature, cost-effective food waste. And I guess in January, what we're going to do is for haulers and cities that bring their organics, you can put the food waste in your green waste bin. As long as the food waste is in a bag, we'll separate it out and then process the food waste and create more energy from it and keep it out of a landfill. As well as the green waste, we recover that, we shred that, and we compost that.
Okay, awesome. Next
Oh, you
question
know what?
is,
Can I make a plug? And then January 18th, we're going to have a workshop on SB 1383. We're going to have Cal Recycle, someone from Cal Recycle, the state agency in charge of implementing this law, someone from LA County Public Works, and then our folks, and any question you have about this law and complying with it. So please spread the word, and Genesis could even put it in the, oh, she's already done it. She's quicker than I can think. Put it in the chat, but yeah, spread the word. It's a big deal to divert, and an important deal to divert this organic waste from, landfill.
yeah, so you'll find more information at the link I posted down below, how to register for the workshop. And like Basil said, we'll have a representative from Cal Recycle and LA County Public Works.
And it's
So it'd be
free.
a great time to get any of your questions answered regarding that program if you have to help implement it for your city or if you work for a waste hauler.
Yeah, it'll be January 18th, 9 to 10 p.m. We'll try to have a brief presentation, 10, 15-minute presentation, and then the next 45 minutes, any questions you want. Hopefully Genesis will be there too. It'll be on Zoom.
Awesome. Okay, so sorry, next one is from Al Guerra. Is it possible to use this water as potable?
California has a set of laws called Title 22. And right now this water, even though it's cleaner than the water a billion people drink every day, in California, it's not direct potable. As you purify it, it could be potable. And we're working on, yeah, that could be potable. But right now, that water is going into the river. We're tasked as a wastewater agency to put that back into the water supply. A water purveyor has to take the lead. So we've recycled it, but the water purveyor has to take the lead. One of the local water purveyor has to take the lead in terms of putting it back into other community uses.
Okay, and just a little plug in here real quick before I get to the next question. I'm going to launch a poll real quick. We're always looking for feedback and ways to improve. So if you could please answer that poll, everyone except for Basil.
Okay.
And Basil's mom. I'm kidding, she's not on. Okay, so if you can please fill out that poll and then I will answer the next question. Next question is from Jim. After completion of your improvements, will salt-based water softeners be allowed?
I think, yeah, that's a great question, Jim. I think, it's been a progression. We, by removing salt-based water softeners in Santa Clarita Valley, we didn't have to spend or build as large a facility. We could comply with a smaller facility. So I don't think salt-based water softeners are going to be allowed, because then they would increase the salt concentration coming into our wastewater, and it may move the needle to the point where we as a community is not complying with the Los Angeles Regional Board, Regional Water Quality Control Board's requirement. So the salt-based water softener, the kind of trying to keep them out of the community, it saved us millions of dollars in terms of having to build stuff and so on. So I don't think they're going to be allowed, because it just increases the chloride or salt concentration in the wastewater. And we're all about saving a dollar. We, being cost effective while protecting public health and the environment.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Any other questions? Oh, we got a comment from Jocelyn Ryan. We're happy to know how you reuse the methane and compost the bio waste. Also happy to know about the upcoming workshop. Yes, do not forget to register. It's going to be
And
great.
please tell her to spread the word. Spread the
Yes.
word.
And then Basil, you didn't talk about the household hazardous waste events.
I was leaving that to you. I was leaving that to you. So we also have household hazardous waste events. I think most weekends in LA County, there's an event that we are partnered with LA County Public Works on, and they're one of the most cost-effective ways keeping stuff out of the landfill, as well as the wastewater treatment plant, whether it be pharmaceuticals or paints. And Genesis, you want to talk more about that program?
Fluorescent light tubes, batteries, car oil, and it's free event. And actually, I think we host about 3 of them in Santa Clarita. So if you know them and love them, which you most likely do, you can. We host it. We proudly host it. So I put the link down, lacsd.org/HHW, so you can find the next event near you. Usually we do them at College of the Canyons or at the, I think, Metro Lake Station once a year. But anyway, we have one more question from Jose Aguilera. What advancements do you see this industry in the next 10 to 15 years?
I think, it's one water. I mean, I think that with what we're seeing in, this wastewater, especially in our southern plant, we have to make sure it's cleaned up and it's available for people if they need it. So, a more purification facility down at our largest treatment plant, we're working on a potential full-scale purification facility with Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And we could produce an additional, we're one of the biggest producers of recycled water now at about 100 million gallons per day. This could produce up to 150 million gallons per day, more than doubling. And that's enough water for 1.5 million people in LA County. And just given kind of like the drought we're under, the fact that most of our water is imported, I think this is part of the future, especially, in LA County.
All right, so that wraps it up. That was the last question. Thank you everyone for coming. We're so glad you're here. And actually, wait, let me just answer this real quick. Someone asked, is old fuel taken at the HHW events? Yes, they are. So you can take them in.
That was your mother asking that. That's Dennis's most favorite program, the household hazardous waste program.
So yeah, they're taken. And again, if you have any other questions, I put our email on the chat. So feel free to email info@lacsd.org. I don't think we have our next event for Santa Clarita set in stone yet, but it will be up there shortly, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for updates. And with that, will this recorded be reshown? Yes, it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. I think it should be uploaded by latest Monday, but usually it'll be uploaded same day, but latest Monday. So I will write our YouTube in the chat. It's just www. Okay. And then
I just want to thank you, Matt. Thank you, Genesis. Everyone have a great holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And thank you for showing up, and thank you for following us.
bye. See you.
All right.
See you on the next one.
Everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.